Hey guys, Tammy here, and in this video, we're going to talk about how to change the judge's opinion of you. Now, this can be really challenging because if you've heard me talk about this or heard me and Thomas talk about this, we talk about how you can get to the point where you're wearing the black hat in the courtroom and the other person is wearing the white hat. This term actually came from a colleague of ours here in San Diego that uses this term to describe, what he would see when he would go into the courtroom sometimes, especially when he had the person wearing the black hat. and so what do you do when you've gotten yourself in this position where you are wearing the black hat and it doesn't seem like anything you say is being listened to? It doesn't seem like anything you say is being taken seriously, and that the judge is just kind of listening to the other person and you're not getting anywhere. I've heard everybody have this complaint, whether both parties were self-represented, whether one party had an attorney and the other didn't, regardless of which party it was that had the attorney, or whether they both had attorneys. I have heard people and seen people get in this situation regardless of all of those different things going on in the courtroom. And I find that one of the biggest ways that we end up wearing the black hat is because something happens that hurts our credibility. Now, you've heard me talk about this many, many times, and you know that I think that credibility is everything when you're standing in front of the judge. And I often have people ask me, well, okay, is my credibility through some message is that message in and of itself going to impact the outcome of my case? No, I mean, it's not like it's not a one-to-one scenario like that where you can just say, oh, you were difficult in this message towards your co-parent, therefore you got this result. It's not that kind of thing. When judges are looking at this, and if you hear them talk about it, they talk about how they look at the whole story and how it all comes together, because the context of how everything comes together is what helps them figure out what's actually going on. So if I have this context of the case and what's happening, and then I've got this thing over here that looks totally out of place that doesn't fit into that context, then this thing over here can't be true or can't be correct or right because it's not fitting into the overall context of what I'm seeing. Let's take a really extreme example and I'll kind of demonstrate this. And I know this can be hard to apply in more nuanced situations, but hopefully by giving you an extreme example, you can kind of understand what I'm saying. Let's say that the court has this case and they have somebody that has a problem with alcohol. Now, this is kind of one of my more favorite examples to use because alcohol issues tend to be a little more black and white. Like either it's something that comes up a lot because obviously as adults, people drink and, they have a beer with dinner or wine with dinner or wine in the evening to relax or whatever. And that's all well and good. We all do those kinds of things. And so then it can be hard to determine at what point does it become a concerning issue or hit that point where it's really problematic. So if the court's trying to figure that out and they have somebody that's saying, I don't have an alcohol problem, I don't abuse alcohol, I drink socially, there's nothing extreme going on. But then over here in the context of the case, I see that they have histories of DUIs, or the therapist is saying that the children are reporting alcohol issues, or there was a CPS investigation over alcohol, or all these different things that don't fit in that narrative of I don't have a problem, doesn't fit into the context of what's happening in the case. And so then this person who has this other viewpoint starts to wear the black hat, not because the court dislikes them or thinks they're evil or anything like that, which, or bad. And I think that that's kind of how we kind of interpret black and white sometimes is like, it's either good or bad. It's either all one extreme or the other. And it's not that kind of thing. It's just that person's statement doesn't fit with the rest of the context of the case. So that person's credibility goes down. And then the court is trying to, figure out the other pieces of the case, and they're listening to what that person's saying. But because your credibility has already been hurt by that one instance, it starts to spiral downward. And so you have to figure out, how do I make my credibility spiral upward? How do I get back to wearing, the white hat, so to speak, or the halo, or whatever kind of analogy you want to use? How do I get back to that and not be wearing the black hat in front of the judge? So one of the ways that you do that is through your communication. And so if you're coming through in your communication and it seems that you're difficult, or seems that you are badgering your co-parent, or being unnecessarily, attacking of them and those types of things, then that's going to hurt your overall credibility in the case, because the court sees that part of it and they go, okay, well, they're being difficult in this part, but they're over here saying they're not being difficult. So what other things are they not in touch with the reality of? All those kinds of things can start to really hurt your credibility. And once your credibility starts to go down, then again, it kind of becomes this spiral where the court isn't believing any of the other things that you say either, or they find the other person more credible, so they believe the other person's story more than yours because of that. The way we build credibility is through our own conduct. And I think that that's one of the things that people miss the most, especially when you talk about having attorneys or experts or people like that involved. A lot of people think, oh, if I just have the right attorney or the best attorney, or I pay enough money for the most experienced attorney I can find, then they're going to be able to solve this problem and boost my credibility. Well, that attorney might have credibility in front of the judge, but that doesn't mean you as a person have credibility in front of the judge. And I'm not saying it's not important that your attorney have a good reputation in front of the judge. I do think that that's important and can help in certain situations. But honestly, the biggest factor in you succeeding in your case is your own conduct, your own presentation to the experts and the people involved in the case, your way of communicating with your co-parent, and your way in general of just conducting yourself. I had a client the other night who is just in a nightmare situation. And this is a mom, and she's been my client for about 2 years. And she has an excellent attorney, somebody that I know very well here in the community. And I just think that this person is a fabulous attorney. And, because of the ongoing issues with dad, there was suddenly this CPS case that came up. One of the experts in the case reported mom to CPS. And CPS came to talk to mom and to do a home visit. And mom's attorney came and was present for that CPS visit. And the attorney actually didn't allow CPS to come inside and to do all that. But that's a whole nother can of worms. And that's not the point of what I'm talking about. She was very calm with CPS. She answered the questions that her attorney okayed for her to answer. She offered them, times to, reschedule or whatever, or, participated, did what she needed to do, but remained very calm, not attacking, and all that kind of thing. And when CPS, which is child welfare, I know it's called different things in different states, but in California, it's called CPS. And when the person from CPS left, the attorney was like, wow, I am really impressed at how calm you were, about how well-spoken you were, about how soft-spoken you were, how deferential you were, like just all those things, like her whole demeanor and her whole presentation. And she kind of joked with him and said, yeah, well, I've been working with Tammy for 2 years. So, and there's been a lot of ups and downs in this case. And so, all the things that she has learned, all the things that, she's been being coached over the last 2 years have really helped her. And now she's at a point of another hiccup, and she's able to, pull up those resources and that information on how to do this in a way that builds her credibility. Because if she had stood out there and, told child welfare of how they were wrong or how they shouldn't be there and they didn't have any right, and she was combative or she refused to let them in or any of those things, I find that's counted essentially as a black mark against you. It's counted as a guilty. Well, if you won't participate and you're being so difficult and defensive, we already think you're guilty of something. That's kind of the assumption with it. There's a lot of things that you yourself do in the process of the case that helps or hurts your credibility. The challenging thing about this is a lot of times when you're in those day-to-day decisions, you don't know what things are going to come up in front of the court, right? Like my client has been, going along and doing her thing, and now all of a sudden there's this CPS investigation, which she didn't expect or know was coming or whatever. And so you kind of have to constantly have all your ducks in a row so that you're prepared at any time, especially when you're dealing with somebody who is narcissistic or high conflict. You never know when that other shoe is going to drop, right? And if you've been in a relationship with this person for any length of time, you know what I'm talking about. We sit around and just in anticipation of that other shoe dropping. And that's what happens even in these child custody and divorce situations is we know that some shoe is going to drop and this person is going to try some attack from some angle, whether it's child welfare or court or just personally attacking or sending nasty messages or doing things that cause you to react hysterically, picking fights at the exchange, whatever it is. I see this take many, many forms. Your job in this is to educate yourself and keep yourself grounded in a way that allows you to conduct yourself in a credible light to the court. Because again, credibility is everything. So if you'd like to learn more about my coaching services and how I can support you on this journey, please go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching, and you can book a free strategy session with me there. I'll see you guys next time. We'll grow in number, fueled by the